Now that we know that DNA is the genetic material, and we've learned a little bit about how that was discovered and a little bit about its shape, let's get more into the specifics of how it's put together and what it's made of. So remember, in our very, very first unit, we talked about the 4 biomolecules. DNA is a nucleic acid, one of the 4 biomolecules. And remember that all nucleic acids are made of nucleotides. And also remember that nucleotides are made out of 3 parts: a sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogenous base. And in DNA, the specific sugar is deoxyribose. That's why it's called deoxyribonucleic acid. Now let's learn something new. So all nucleotides have a base, a nitrogenous base. Well, in DNA, there are 4 bases that exist: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. You rarely see them spelled out. You normally just see them represented by their first letters, A, G, C, and T. Now, in RNA, the other type of nucleic acid, which we'll learn more about in a few days, thymine, the T, gets replaced with a 5th base called uracil, or U. That's one of the ways we can tell the difference between DNA and RNA. If it has T's in it, then it's DNA. If it has U's in it, then it's RNA. Okay? But today we're still focusing on DNA, so we're still focusing on A's, G's, C's, and T's. So let's remind ourselves, what do nucleotides look like again? Okay. So phosphate group, always represented by a circle. A sugar, in this instance, deoxyribose, because we're talking about DNA. And then your nitrogenous base, which is just going to be represented by any sort of shape over here. This changes up. But now we know that there's A's, T's, G's, and C's. Okay? It's a nitrogenous base because it's connecting by a nitrogen. So here's what your bases may look like. This is a little bit more specific and a little bit more intense. Honor students, you're going to want to remember this. My CP students, this isn't quite as important for you. But there are 2 shapes that our bases take. You have purines, which are your A's and G's, and you have pyrimidines, which are your C's, T's, and U's. Purines have a double ring, so they have 2 rings on them, okay? And pyrimidines have only a single ring, okay? But again, this is a little bit more intense than the level that high school biology really needs to worry about. I just wanted you to be able to see a representation, just in case they show you a specific one on the EOC. Now, with DNA, we know it's double-stranded. We talked about that yesterday. There's 2 strands of nucleotides. Okay? What happens is the phosphate and the sugar make up the backbone, or the outside, as you can see here on the side. Okay? And it alternates. It's phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, going down along the backbone, the 2 backbones. In the middle, the parts that make up what look like the rungs of a ladder, those are your bases. Okay, you have 1 base on this side, 1 base on this side. Well, the great thing about DNA is that the bases pair in a very specific way. They are complementary based on their chemical shape. So if you have an A on one strand, the other strand will always have a T to pair with it. A and T always go together, and G and C always go together. So if we look here, if this pink one is an A, then that blue is a T. So if we have a blue T here, the other side has to be an A, because A and T can go together, and that's it. They're complementary. They fit together like puzzle pieces. The way that I remember who goes with whom is that A and T are both, when you write them, they're made with straight lines. They're very straight and angular. So the straight lines go together, A and T. And then G and C are both curvy letters when you write them. So the straight letters go together and the curvy letters go together. A and T and G and C. So here's a picture of it coming together. This is, remember, it's a double helix, helix meaning it's twisted. But if you untwist it and you straightened it out, this is what it would look like. Okay? So you've got two backbones, one here and one here, okay? And the backbone is made up of phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar. And on the other side, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar. And in the middle, you have your bases, okay? And they're complementary. A pairs with T, C pairs with G, G pairs with C, T pairs with A, okay? Now, the two strands are held together by hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are really, really weak bonds, but they're strong enough to hold it together. But they're weak enough that we can pull these apart really easily when we need to. And that's going to be important in the next thing we're going to learn about, okay? So they're very weak hydrogen bonds holding it together, which are nice and easy to pull apart, okay? So backbone, phosphate, sugar, bases in the center with their complementary pairings, and held together by hydrogen bonds. Make sure that you understand all of that about how to label one of these, what the backbones are made of, the ladders are made of, because that's really important, okay? So just a reminder of a few things. DNA in eukaryotes is found in the nucleus. Prokaryotes don't have a nucleus, but they still have DNA. It's just free floating in the cytoplasm. And your DNA is your genetic code. And so here's a couple of words for you. So 3 nucleotides, so a set of 3 of those building blocks equal a codon or a code word. That code word is for an amino acid. And if we remember Unit 1, amino acids come together to make proteins, okay? So your genetic code is made of nucleotides, A's, T's, G's, and C's. And our body reads them in sets of 3. 3 is a code word for a specific amino acid. And amino acids come together to make proteins. So your DNA controls what you look like and how you are built and how your body works by its specific patterns of A's, T's, G's, and C's. Every single living thing on this planet is made of the exact same 4 bases, A's, T's, G's, and C's. The only difference is how many they have and what order they're in. So the more closely related two organisms are, the more similar their codes of A's, T's, G's, and C's. So for example, you and your brother, your genetic code is super, 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 super similar because you're so closely related. It's like 99.9% the same. But our closest living relative that is not a human is the chimpanzee. We're 97% similar in our A's, T's, G's, and C's. But look at what a huge difference that 3% different makes. It's hugely different, us and chimpanzees. We're way more intelligent and we're self-aware and we have morals and values because of a 3% difference in DNA in our A's, T's, G's, and C's. I think it's cool, though, that the same 4 building blocks that make us are the same 4 building blocks that make grass and worms and trees. It's so cool.